My name is Amanda Ring, and this is Flight of the Feminine. Here on Flight of the Feminine, I'm inviting you to explore and reclaim all things feminine, the divine and the dark. To awaken your womb and heart consciousness, I'm inviting you to open to the realms of energy and spirit, to evoke empowerment and create sovereignty. As a sacred soul, each one of you are on this journey through life. Welcome back to Flight of the Feminine. I'm Amanda Ring, your host. Here on Flight of the Feminine, I am inviting you to explore and reclaim all things feminine, the divine and the dark, womb and heart consciousness, the realms of energy and spiritual expansion, empowerment and sovereignty as the sacred soul each one of you are on this journey through life. In our last episode, special guest Tara Brading joined me, and we navigated the waters of misogyny, patriarchy, and the mother lines in relation to your sense of self-worth, the path of self-liberation, and the ancestral healing that can also activate as you open to new awareness of these very real aspects working in your psyche, your body, and your hearts as women. We discussed ways you might intentionally work with how you have internalized sexism and colonialism, how this might play out in your life, and how you can start to interrupt its influence. I do encourage you to go back and find this one and have a listen. It's quite an evocative episode. I was very teary at the beginning, and whenever I work with Tara, I can't seem to stop crying. She always has a presence of helping to open the ancestral ways, and the wisdom just flows through. So there's a couple other references I want to share with you in relation to what she and I discussed. And those are also in previous episodes 7, 8, and 10. These episodes explore things like boundaries and worthiness, and another guest episode with another beautiful mentor and sister of mine, Dr. Karen Ward. She's coming in from Dublin on that episode, and we're talking about the importance of women gathering. And that's all connected to how you might be able to empower yourself to interrupt the influence of unworthiness and of this separation from your own power and wisdom. These episodes are there to jumpstart your curiosity and support your own learning around the powerful path of self-liberation, self-love, and sisterhood. It can really feel overwhelming and evoke a lot of emotion at times. And so my hope is that many of these podcast episodes will act as a resource for you that you can return to over and over again. Like myself, many women are currently on a journey of self-reclamation. And I would like to highlight something in this episode that supports that path enormously. And that is the importance of reestablishing a deeper, more intentional connection with the earth. It is an essential part of your human nature. Even that phrase, we say it all the time. Oh, it's human nature to do this. It's human nature to want to be hugged. It's human nature to want to see people, to feel well, to have different experiences. It's a colloquial saying we all have heard and use, and it's very telling because we are nature, and it is in our nature to be in intimate connection with the earth. So in this episode, I will be sharing more about the value of conscious connection with the earth. The Greek term many people are familiar with is Gaia, and the Celtic pantheon of mythology and goddess feminine wisdom, the earth is referred to as Danu, the goddess Danu. Like Gaia is a Greek goddess. This episode, we're going to be exploring a bit more about that, the conscious connection with the earth, and more specifically about the practice of dowsing, how it's connected to the earth and to energy. And it has become a real passion of mine and an extension of the spiritual and healing work that I'm called to do in this life. And I'm very much looking forward to exploring this with you in this episode and the next one, where I'll have a special guest joining me to explore further, expand it into human consciousness. So stay tuned for that one. As I've shared in previous episodes, I'm inviting you to reconnect with the feminine wisdom ways that acknowledge you are an extension of nature. I'll go further to say that you are an expression of nature itself, of herself, the great mother of all, the Earth Mother. Cross-culturally, spiritually, the earth has held a feminine, energetic, and archetypal principle. The earth has been viewed as the feminine. It is feminine. She is feminine. The bringer of life, the nurturer, the source of all life's resources and interdependent systems. She beholds the feminine wisdom ways, the ultimate matriarchal medicine of reciprocity, interdependence, beauty, strength, community, relationship, creativity, sensuality, resilience, resourcefulness, ingenuity, and intuitiveness. These are all aspects of your feminine nature as well. Regardless of gender, these are the signatures of the feminine archetypal principle in the psyches of all humans. This is all of your right brain expertise. And in terms of the energy body, this is your root, sacral, and heart chakra energies. The earth is the goddess, the great mother of all. Not only her sacred soils, her waters, the plants, the critters and creatures, but also the wind, the rain, the elements of fire, lightning, storms. All of this is beholden of wisdom, of medicine, biological medicine, and spiritual medicine, spiritual wisdom. And all of this nature is a metaphor also for the human body and the journey of life. As you are a human body, you are also a human being. And the human body and your life experiences are on a continuous evolution and are a continuous expression of nature. Even just thinking about when a storm is brewing, people will start to feel it in their bodies. If there is a drop in the atmospheric pressure, some people get headaches. Some people get sleepy. Some people start to feel unsettled. Some people, even if their minds are busy with other things, are feeling like all of a sudden they should go get some things from the grocery store. There might be an impetus to do something that doesn't seem to have any relation to the storm, but if one was to be more present with themselves, they would start to realize they're picking up on this energy, even if they weren't aware of it from the news or the weather forecast. Our ancestors were deeply connected to this as well, this sensing, this energy. And there would be foreboding cues and clues they'd be looking out for. All of a sudden, they might start packing things up from wherever they were, or there might be a call to call the children back from where they're playing because they've noticed the birds' behaviors have changed. They've moved location, or their behavior is erratic, or there is a density in the air. And that was all felt, all sensed, all through their feminine principle, sensed through the body. Our personal earth is our body. So it was felt and sensed through that physiological experience. And yet it was deeply tapped into a knowing, a higher appreciation that the logical mind doesn't make sense of, can't really make sense of. And as I work with women and as I've journeyed along my own path of self-awareness, self-love, self-reclamation, I've really nurtured a very intentional and conscious connection with the earth and with all of nature. And it has become an ultimate resource for me. And I've talked about it in other episodes about how, we just feel better when we step out into nature in many places. And it's got the highest frequency that can bring our systems back into balance, especially the nervous system. This episode is about inviting that reconnection and weaving in this really interesting, fascinating, and ancient practice of dowsing, which I'm going to come to in a few moments. The communion with the natural world is in all of your psyches, in your sensory systems, and a deep remembrance is there from your ancestral lineages, the lineage of blood and the lineage of your soul. The earth has many microsystems, biosystems living within her, upon her, and around her, just like us. And also like us, she has many energetic signatures and expressions of electromagnetic features and vibrational frequencies that can be sensed, felt, detected, and communicated with. And this is where dowsing comes in. So more on that in a little bit. You are a human being with an electromagnetic field. Talked about this in a previous episode called Light Being. You are emitting, receiving, and responding to frequency all of the time. We all are. And the Earth Mother is too. She has a very complex and fascinating set of electromagnetic fields and vibrational frequencies that are creating this dance all the time in the invisible realms to our naked eye, but it's happening and you will feel it. For the earth, these are expressed in grid patterns and as currents, as energy lines, portals, or vortices, and also as crystalline collections of patterns, which is more vibrational than electromagnetic. The earth itself has chakras, vortices, releasing points, and aspects where energy is being brought in from the earth plane and from galactic and cosmic sources, the sun, the moon. And think about solar storms and solar winds when the sun has an ejection that once it finally hits and moves through the veils of the earth, it's impacting us because it's frequency and it's energy. Also just happens to be today that I'm recording this episode on a full moon. We know, and so does every fisherman on the planet, knows that when there's a full moon, the tides will be the highest. The rivers and streams will be abundant. there is a swelling on the planet of all the waterways. And if you pay close enough attention to your own body, and particularly where women's bodies function a little differently with the hormonal system and the womb, many people, many women will retain fluid during the full moons. And this is also energetic. This is because of what's happening with the lunar cycle and the pull and push of frequencies and electromagnetic influence on the planet and on us. It can't not affect us because we are the same biology as everything on the planet. Your ancestors and mine knew all about this, and they made use of it and had reverence for it and respect for it. And specifically in relation to where they made their settlements, what their migratory patterns were like, where their spiritual or sacred spaces got built, or not even built, but where they gathered for spiritual or sacred purpose. For our ancestors, it influenced their farming practices as well, and their ability to read nature. I'll harken back to the reference I made about knowing when a storm is coming in, that sort of thing. Farmers and fishermen and others who are working closely with the earth, your sensing capacities for what seems to be invisible in the natural world becomes highly attuned and enhanced. And this is what dowsing helps you do as well. It is a way to develop your intuitive and sensing abilities. So the fact that there is this natural innate capacity for us to attune to frequency and vibration that is invisible to our naked eye, and that we have a visceral response, and the fact that our ancestors and the current powers that be have been aware and are aware of these frequencies and energies of the earth. That is why there are so many powerful ancient sites and structures dotted across the earth in very specific regions. Even places like the Vatican, the White House, and many other really important political and religious structures are very strategically placed. And that'll be much more in another episode than we'll go into here, but I do cover this in the brief history of dowsing that I go over in my level 1 training. This is not foreign knowledge, but it has been held in a way that is not commonly known. That's how I'll say it. And the fact that these earth energies are ever present and they have intelligence and they can be communicated with and they can be influenced is also another reason what might explain why there are certain natural spaces that you love to frequent, for how you feel while you're there and how you feel afterwards, and why they feel so special, aside from any personal association to the place that you might have. So from a shamanic and animistic perspective, which I'm aligned with, all plants, trees, rocks, every aspect of the natural world has both a biointelligence. So a plant has its biological constituents that can be used medicinally. But from a shamanistic and animistic perspective, everything has a spiritual intelligence as well. The earth energies and frequencies are merging with and influencing the nature spaces you are in, as well as whatever trees and plants and animals and rivers and mountain ranges might be there. There is inherent intelligence in these frequencies and the energies, just like there is in your body and your light being. I would like to just now mention that I do currently offer an in-person level 1 dowsing training, which is an introduction to dowsing, which I'm going to give you a definition for more broadly in a moment. It also includes a general history, more of my own personal stories, and the core skill development for you to begin to work with not only your own energy field, but that of the world of energy around you. So for those of you who aren't local, I have 2 invitations for you. One is to keep an eye out for the online guided self-paced course that I'm creating for you. So I'm already in the process of creating that version. I have all the videos and the audios and the manual and everything. It's just getting it all put together. So that is coming. It's a work in progress. That'll be an option for you once you finish this episode. And if it's intriguing to you and you're curious about it, that online option will be available within a few months. I'm also going to throw out there, if you are interested in having a group training, I love to travel and I would be more than happy to bring the training to wherever you are. So you can always reach out to me by email, send me a note and let me know and we'll chat. So stay tuned for all of that. So many people love dowsing because it is fascinating, it's fun, and it really will blow your mind to have direct experience of energy. And you have to stay out of your logical mind. It's a great way to work with your intuition and use your logical mind as a vehicle. The whole realm of dowsing and earth energies is like I could do a whole series of podcasts on this. And so if you're intrigued and want to know more by the end of this, let me know that as well in the show comments and send me an email and say, yes, Amanda, I want to know more. All right. I've mentioned it how many times already. It's time to give you a proper definition. So like, what the hell is dowsing? And I kind of forget sometimes that people don't know what I'm talking about because it's so much a part of my everyday life. And when I started to discover more about it through my personal reinvention of becoming more of a healer and a coach along with being a therapist, I was like, how do people not know about this? Like, how do people not know about dowsing? And once I started looking into the history of it and doing the research around it and how it's even utilized now, it became very apparent why we don't commonly know about it, because the powers that be would prefer us not to. It really lends to more sovereignty, more self-reliance, because of how you, like every other single human on the planet, have the capacity, just as much as I do, to learn how to use dowsing. So simply put, dowsing, which is spelled D-O-W-S-I-N-G, is a method of looking for and detecting things you cannot seem to connect with through your ordinary human senses. It is both a method, a skill, and something you practice to detect invisible energy, to detect frequency, to detect actual material objects that you cannot see, and or targets that may or may not be an object. And I don't mean targets in the military sense, but something you're trying to locate that you have set an intention to find. The reason we would use dowsing is to gain information and or possibly influence the state of energy. Usually you use a dowsing tool of some kind, and I'm going to give you a list of those. Using a pendulum as a form of dowsing. Using copper rods that are shaped in an L that you hold with your hands, 1 or 2 of them. Those are called dowsing rods. There are things called dowsing bobbers, which have a bouncing component to them. There's also something called a Y rod because it's shaped like a Y, often made from wood. And this is where I'll bring you into the most common awareness and reference to dowsing the modern person has is for looking for water. And they might have heard that their grandparent or an uncle or someone in the community was known as a water witcher. Yes, as in a witch. Witching for water. It's called water witching. And they would have used a Y rod. And they would have used, depending on the country that they lived in or live in, they would have used a specific type of wood, because certain wood picks up water better than others because it has a higher constituent of water within it, and it has an energetic resonance with water and spiritual connection to water. So like willow, and most people know that willows like to grow in more wet soil in wet areas. And they are also energetically, emotionally, and spiritually connected with emotions to release, even sadness. And we have the term for a specific species of willow that's called a weeping willow. There's no coincidence here, folks. It's all connected. And so our ancestors, and even my grandfather, I found out later, was very skilled at locating water. Why? People were looking for wells. Our ancestors, this is how they communed with the land to find water for their survival. Now, I even know locally, one of the local plumbing companies that when I first moved to this home almost a decade ago, I had them coming for some, standard plumbing things. And I asked them, because rumor had it from my dowsing mentors that most plumbing companies actually have someone local who is a dowser that they call on if they're struggling with something, particularly when they're drilling for wells. And I was like, I'm going to ask them. So I did. And they were like, oh yeah, so-and-so down in such and such county. He's our go-to, but he's in his 80s now, so we don't call him unless we absolutely have to. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. Something else that happened with them, and I'm digressing a little bit. I'll come back to the defining information for you. A couple of years ago, the first time I had water in my basement, and I had to have a sump pump put in the old well that already existed there. But the previous owners of my house had put spray foam on the walls of the basement. I live in an about 150-odd-year-old farmhouse. That's been renovated, except the basement. It still gets relatively wet, but it does have a cement floor, and they've sprayed in the insulation, which was wonderful because it needed it, but they covered over the windows from the inside that would have been in the foundation around the base of the house. So you could see the windows from the outside, but you couldn't see them from the inside. And just the location of where my old well was, where they were putting the sump pump, which helps to take excess water out of the basement or the area that it is pooling in, where it shouldn't be. It needed to have a pipe run from the sump pump out a window or a door. And my door was simply too far away. We didn't have enough piping, and it wasn't a long-term solution. So we had to find the window, and the plumbers were nervous about drilling holes in random places through this insulation and destroying it and possibly hitting wires or something. So I said, well, hang on a minute. I'm going to get my dowsing rods. I said, I bet I can find the window. And they gave me the head tilt and oh yeah, kind of look. And I was like, yeah, let's do it just for shits and giggles. Let's just try it. It's my house. So if I decide to tell you to do something, I'll take responsibility for that. Sure enough, within minutes, I had found the location of what I completely trusted and truly believed was the location of the window from the inside. I've been dowsing a lot with my rod, so I have a really good relationship with them, and I have a confidence in using them. So I was like, yep, it's right here. So they said, are you sure? And I'm like, yep, go ahead. And so one of the guys went outside and was standing by the window, and the other was inside drilling through. And we'd already taken the window pane off from the outside, and sure enough, came right through the center of the window. And it was so validating. This is a great example of showing how I was looking for something I couldn't see, and they couldn't see either. But I got my signals from the rods. X marks the spot of where that window was. So that's a very practical example of how dowsing can be used very functionally, and it can also be used very spiritually. So the Y rod, back to that, is an older way that more traditional water finders or water witchers would have searched for water. Now, it's not quite that simple. You have to make sure it's potable water, and people who do work with dowsing looking for well waters, there's a whole series of questions you need to ask, and it's not just, oh, we found water. Is it drinkable? How deep is the well? How replenishable is it? There's so many, what constituents of minerals are in the water, like all that sort of thing. And you can dowse for all of those things. It's fascinating. So there's different tools that you can use, but your body is also a tool. That's why I call my course Divine Dowsing, Tuning Your Instrument, because ultimately, as humans typically do, we can become dependent on our tools. So we don't trust ourselves without using the rods or using the Y stick or using a bobber. But ultimately, that is just a tool that is like an antenna of yourself that's gaining this information through energy, and your body is translating it to you in a cognitive way, so you have information. Ultimately, yourself, your body is a dowsing tool. So I teach dowsing with these, external material tools, and also body dowsing. This is ever present already in our society. And you might say, where? I've never seen it or heard of it. Maybe some of you have. And I'm sure some of you who are listening have been in my training. So hi to you and prospective people who might join. It's so fun. But how you might see it already in regular society as well is a lot of naturopathic doctors do manual muscle testing. Same as Ayurvedic doctors and Chinese doctors, they might do what's called either bioenergetic testing or manual muscle testing. It's very popular for testing allergies, for food allergies and things like that. It's also called applied kinesiology. All of those terms are just other names for body-based dowsing, where your body is the tool. In the training, I talk more about this, of course, in much more detail, but dowsing is a binary system of gathering that information. So you start to figure out what codes you need and are unique to you to get the information that you're looking for. So I mentioned also that a lot of people who do healing work or interested in crystals and energy, they might use a pendulum. Well, a pendulum is a dowsing tool. It is another way to work with energy, to get yes/no answers from questions that you are asking. I want to share something because, if you've listened to other episodes, that I love sort of the etymology of words, the root of words. And in this particular training that I offer, I teach with the dowsing rods, and everybody gets a set of travel-sized rods. And they're typically copper because copper is a better conduit for energy. The term dowsing rod actually has its root in the Cornish language, which originates in the UK. The word dowsing is actually spelt in the Cornish way, D-E-W-S-Y, dowsy, which translates to mean goddess. And rod is spelt R-H-O-D, and its translation is tree branch. So a dowsing rod is a goddess tree branch. So it brings me back to this innate connection with the earth and energy being the goddess, and how nature is this gateway of connecting with all this other spiritual information and, of course, biological information that also has a frequency and energetic resonance. Now, there's been lots and lots and lots of research on dowsing and how it works, and they still can't explain actually how it works. But I can tell you that there is definitive use of dowsing by the military, by archaeologists in the oil industry, in the mining industry. Various detective agencies have dowsers on their payroll. And I will leave it at that. Come to the training, or, do your own little research around it, or join me in future episodes when we get into this, because it's so fascinating. Now, when someone is actively dowsing, so you're practicing this skill and you're searching for something that you cannot see or sense with your other human sensibilities, you will be using the higher vibrational brainwave states of the alpha and beta states of your brain. This has been recorded. And at the same time, you're using some form of psychic component that they cannot fully measure. And the level of accuracy for dowsers who have mastered this skill will blow your mind. It literally will just leave you befuddled and curious for more. It certainly does me every time I read more and more and more about it, or I have direct experience of the accuracy. And one of the things I love about dowsing is that you have to really work with your ego. And the greater capacity for you to be in a neutral state and not care about your results and your outcome, the greater accuracy and skill you will have. And so this really is a challenge for the normal general human mind and human being. So it's a great skill and experience to have, whether you're interested from a functional perspective and you want to find your broken water line or your septic field or where a certain electrical line runs out a certain wall that you can't see in a house you're going to buy, or when you're rebuilding something, like, you can use dowsing for all of those things. So it's very functional, but also through dowsing, you can balance your own chakras and you can clear energetic residue from your home. You can communicate with the energies present on the land you live upon or that you frequent. You can also find your lost wallet. It's been in use for thousands and thousands of years. There are cave paintings indicating this. Cleopatra had a dowser for the royal court. There is evidence of it in many ancient civilizations and early religious organizations in France in the 1400s. Like, there's so much evidence of it existing and being used. But my reason for sharing it with you today in this episode is, well, it's layered. But as I said at the beginning, as you are reclaiming yourself, as you're getting to know who you are authentically and connecting to your feminine wisdom ways, there is an invitation and a natural draw to want to connect with nature more. And if there isn't, that is my invitation to you. And with that connection to nature and the earth, you get to awaken to capacities within you that go beyond the mind, that connect you to your ancestral lineage that connect you to wisdom and intelligence that belongs to the feminine archetypal energies and the right brain and frequency and spirituality. Yeah. So I also have a blog that you can check out if you want to know a little bit more. Head over to my website and you can find a blog on dowsing and more information there about any upcoming trainings. Possibly join me for something in person or invite me to you, and I can bring the training to your community. And also keep an eye out for online versions that are coming up. So that's all I have to share with you on this really fascinating topic. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to learn more about this, because it is truly something that has opened my life in a really rewarding way and has deepened my connection to my spirituality, to my sense of sovereignty. And I love that it is also communal and that we can support one another through this. You can support family members. You can support your children. You can balance their energy field if they're having a rough patch and not sleeping or really emotional, and they can actually see the rod moving, and they can then believe that, wow, my feelings and my emotions and my thoughts actually do have an impact. So it's something I hope has really opened your heart and your curiosity. We're not done though. There's another episode coming where we will be exploring dowsing more. In the next episode, I will be joined by a world-renowned geobiologist and dowser from the UK by the name of Rory Duff, where he and I will take the conversation further into dowsing details and earth energies, and how he has actually been discovering major changes in Gaia's earth energies and how this is actually impacting changes in human consciousness. So if you want to geek out a bit more on dowsing with me, and you are interested in exploring this also through the lens of unity consciousness, the new earth paradigm, and more, then the next episode is absolutely for you. So make sure you tune in. Thank you for your listening ears, and be sure to join the Seven Feathers community by signing up for my newsletter so that you will be among the first to know all about any dowsing offerings coming your way and those that are already out there. Thank you so much. It's time, my sisters, to elevate your mind, expand your feminine heart, explore your inner wisdom. Let's soar together. Sending you all big, big love.
This is Story Studio Network.